Hi, JDL Brushes here, and this video is brought to you by the Marker Brush Pack. Yeah. Okay, so now we have, guess what? Another interior sketch. Jesus, Dave, kind of diversify your work. Okay. Eventually I will change my subject matter, but for now we are sticking to interior stuff. I did start out with a very rough pencil sketch in the beginning, and I do want to plan out my line work more. But I do also think that it's one of the reasons why my sketches are kind of tight compared to my first marker sketch, where I kind of shifted the style of my rendering, and that first sketch was a little more spontaneous, and it didn't really have a kind of a full-on rough sketch, although I did have multiple tries with the sketches and just kind of overdid or just painted or sketched on top of a previous sketch. For the most part, it was super spontaneous, and yeah, I think planning out your line work too much can make your work kind of tight. So I don't know, I think it's just best to not always, but I think sometimes stylistically you can just kind of let it happen and just go in balls deep, just go in and not be so don't hesitate too much, and just go in and make it happen, and I actually don't always use the shift tool or this shift holding of the shift key when doing my straight lines. I mean, it does work, but often if you do it too often, it can make your sketch look not even, it won't make your sketch look as natural, and you can actually feel that it's too straight. So often, or sometimes, what I would do is I would not use the shift key and just kind of go in manually with my Intuos Pro. Now, if you do have a Cintiq or some kind of an on-screen or a tablet with a screen where you can actually see where the pen hits the paper or canvas, I think you will have an easier time sketching out some more straighter lines. But if you're using kind of a graphic tablet where it's kind of something you put on front or on the side of your monitor or something, you will have a tougher time getting a straight line. And I mean, eventually you'll get there with time, but yeah. Gosh, I'm drinking too much water. Jesus. And after I do this recording, I will piss myself again. As you can see, if you focus in on the chair, I actually did a kind of gradient with the marker, with a black colored marker, and doing the kind of gradation stuff where there is this gradation from dark to light. I think works with black stuff as well, because usually when I do my gradients, I do it with the colors and not necessarily with the blacks or with the darks, right? But in this case, it does add more to the rendering. And again, this goes back to my philosophy of trying to make it good in all phases of your rendering process. And the line work in the beginning right now, you can see, it's already pretty good, pretty nice, pretty simple, but it's awesome. And now for the blacks or darks, I need to make it more interesting. And yes. By the way, I was trying to find, I don't always have a set brush to use. Sometimes I do cycle through the marker brushes and find the one that fits. And not all of them work for all your sketches, so make sure that you have a variety. Even though I do suggest that you buy my marker brushes, I think it's still a good thing to make your own, so you can kind of find your own personal, because you will have your own personal preference. So let's say you download a kind of free brush online, a marker brush. Make sure that it fits your needs. So make sure you're able to play around with the brush settings and find the settings that work for your specific needs or purpose when you're rendering something. And yeah. So yeah. You have to be able to make some of your own. I think it just helps in general as well. And, you know, being able to personalize things and make things work for you is, I think, important, not just, you know, in your illustration skills, but I guess in life in general. That's kind of a general tip. So yeah. And now you can actually see me use some of that gradation technique with the colors, where I would use both a lighter and darker version of a specific color. And you can actually see me do that now. Now again, I am basing my colors on the reference photo too much, and I don't know, it's just not working for me. I think I should be more independent when it comes to my color choices. Again, you know, I'm not designing this room. I do have a reference. You know, I am sketching and creating this sketch off of a reference. So I don't think it's a good idea to kind of mix different initiatives together. So yeah. And I think that's a good tip as well when you're trying to do anything. Make sure that that you have a specific goal that you're trying to achieve, because right now I think I was still trying to figure out the proper settings that work for Instagram. What kind of line work should I have? What kind of shading process, or what kind of shading feel should I have that looks good for Instagram, or in general, and that fits within a 1:1 aspect ratio frame. And that was my goal, trying to figure out what's the right setting for that. And this sketch is actually kind of similar to a previous sketch. I believe it was also a bedroom, but it was blue and it had a window in the back of the bed. Yes. And because of this sketch, this kind of proves that I can repeat the same thing, because I did just repeat the kind of process. I used the 7 brush size for the fine liner, and maybe a 50 or a 70 or 50 to 60 brush size for the actual marker strokes, both for the blacks or darks and the colors. So I think that's a good setting or configuration to have. Now what I have to do next in my next batch of sketches is try to replicate the first one I did, which is, I personally feel, the best, because it I don't even know how to explain it. It just looks better. I think it's because it was less planned. Maybe that's the reason why it was more, or it's more kind of stands out more. And I also know that I used a bigger brush size, a 70 to 100, around that range, maybe an 80 brush size for the color renderings and stuff, and even the blacks and the darks. And I think that's a good size to have for Instagram, because you can actually see the strokes more. So maybe that's why I do like the first one. I don't know. The only way to find out is to actually do the sketch. So I will be doing that eventually. So yeah. So right now I'm working on the white lines, and it just adds more flair. It can help define the edges, and stylistically, it's kind of cool to look at. It also helps bring that kind of white space in the background into the sketch, so there's more blending in that regard. And this piece isn't that bad. I actually do like it. It's kind of close to my kind of mental standard of a sketch that I would expect from a marker. So it's not that bad. It's kind of cool. It's more on the cool side. It's more on the successful side. And yeah. So eventually I think I will be going for the adjustment layers, and then from there the finisher stuff, the color dodge, the sponge tool, and the burn tool. And you can even see me kind of signify some lighting with the white line. This is actually what I would do when using traditional markers, so I think it works. But if you're working on something digitally, I think you could just use a kind of soft brush or something, or the color dodge tool once you've flattened the entire sketch. I think it's enough to create some kind of lighting, so yeah. Although it does work using the white line. So now I think I pumped up the saturation to about 50 or close to 50. I'm not sure. Excuse me. And I think I was trying to use the gradient maps in this one, because again, the sketch was it's too warm for me, and there was nothing contrasting the warmness of the sketch. But yeah, I eventually I think I stuck to the the color balance or something. I'm not sure. I eventually let go of the gradient maps thing, and yeah. So I'm not sure. I think I did use the color balance for this one. Oh shit, I didn't. I think I skipped it, and I just went for the finisher moves. And you can see me use the burn tool now in the flattened layer version of this entire sketch. And I'm just adding more some shadows and some nice gradients to the thing. And the burn tool is set on midtones, as well as the color dodge tool. And I think now I'm working with the sponge tool and pumping up the saturation of some areas. And I'm kind of spacing them out throughout the sketch to kind of even out the sketch. And then I ended with the color dodge tool. I added them near the lights, and I created a kind of reflection or a light from the window onto the floor. And even in that wall, I made some kind of dash of light, which is cool. And yes, basically done. Now I'm just resizing it for Photoshop or for Instagram. But I'm not sure if I should add a kind of a noise filter in the end to kind of make it more, to kind of add a little texture. I'm not sure, maybe. I will try it in the next few sketches. So that is the sketch for you folks, and